So we're approving last year's annual meeting minutes. Those were also included in the link to the annual report. Does anyone have any changes to last year's annual meeting minutes? I don't see anyone waving their hand. So if there are none, I would ask for a show of your hands to approve last year's annual meeting minutes. Do you approve? If you so, raise your hand. That looks to me to be the majority of us. Okay, thank you for that. Next on our agenda is a video montage of our life together over the last year that Lori has put together. Oh, the smiles. Thank you, Lori, for putting that together. It's a great way to view faithfulness of this congregation over the last year. Thank you for your work in that. Next on our agenda is to hear from our senior warden, Charlotte Layton, who has been St. Paul's senior warden for this last year. What we've done in 2021, if our host could spotlight Charlotte, I invite you now, Charlotte.
Yes, I second your thank you to Laurie for those pictures. They are, they're better than words. But I've been asked to put some words to what's happened this past year. And as Chris and I said in our part of the annual report, this has been an amazing year. We have sustained a strong community in so many ways. We've enriched our hybrid worship services, continued all the weekday gatherings, maintained attendance and pledges, and continued all of our internal and external ministries. That may not ordinarily require mention, but this is the second year of a pandemic. But we did more than survive. We welcomed new members. We started a new weekday gathering, became involved in 3 new ministries, especially for immigrants and students, and made an extraordinarily generous gift to Haiti. Under Pastor Felicia's leadership, we also updated and deepened St. Paul's core values. 2 of our well-loved staff left, but Pastor Felicia hired 3 new staff in innovative sharing with Trinity and St. Luke's. And we engaged 2 new people to manage our hybrid worship. The columbarium is completed and on site. Rhoda will say more about that. The Faith Partnership has strengthened its relationships and mutual commitment with the move of offices to the West Wing. No small task, that one. The Faith Partnership Cooperating Committee has also built trust and collegiality among themselves and is refining our organizational model and decision-making model through a series of retreats, which is going to serve us all well. John Williams will say more about the Faith Partnership. The capstone of the year is having called Pastor Felicia as our rector with a unanimous vote. And to our great gratitude, she accepted our call. So St. Paul's is beginning our journey into 2022 with a rector for the first time in 6 years. I want to wrap up by adding my thanks and just celebrating the energy of St. Paul's community, our staff, the vestry, Pastor Felicia, and the Holy Spirit for having made all of these things possible. As I told Felicia and the vestry, I'm stepping down after a year. Instead of the typical 3 years. A health issue has come up and I need to pay attention to it, and now seems the right time. As we move into the vestry elections, we'll see that Felicia has nominated a very competent, energetic, and willing person to be senior warden. And actually, there's a cadre of very competent and wonderful people coming up for leadership this year. I felt privileged to have had to be in a special partnership with St. Paul's community, the vestry, and with Felicia. I've learned so much working with such wonderful people. I will treasure this past year. Thank you. Felicia, let's go to looking forward.
We'll move on to looking forward. Thank you, Charlotte. It has been a joy to work with you, and I too have learned a lot from our working relationship. 2 ones on the Enneagram. We made it. I'm going to share just a few highlights of our time over the last year. just a few things that have stood out to me. I got a little emotional reading the annual report this year, because this last year has been so challenging in many, many different ways because of the pandemic. And we've had a lot of expectations we did with vaccines, and yet some of those expectations were not met. And we've had to change and pivot so many times we have lost count. And yet, when I sat and read the junior and senior wardens' reports, and then all of the different ministry reports that people had submitted of ministry that's taken place in a challenging year, the faithfulness and resilience and commitment to love in the way that Paul talks about it astounded me. So I want to thank the community for the myriad of ways in which you've continued to give and be present and prayerful with our community during this difficult time. I'm proud that there seems to be a connection and engagement that I think has been encouraged through a lot of small groups that have been offered at St. Paul's, a way for people to connect with one another and stay in touch, even in the times of social distancing and going from online worship to in-person worship, whether it was from Tuesday morning Eucharist group, Wednesday Zoom hangout group, a new contemplative group that has formed on Fridays. We had a very active Echo Justice group that formed an immigration task force and working together in action. There are so many small groups at St. Paul's that many of you might not know about, which is why I commend again to your reading the annual report to know all the different offerings and the way that people are involved. And we would like to, as a staff, encourage new small groups as a way to connect with one another. And we've got two coming up that we look forward to introducing you to. One is on centering prayer that will soon start, and one will be offered by Florian Hild, another small group coming up. Groups of worship and prayer and study and action, but allowing us to get to know each other a little bit more intimately as we walk this faith journey. And one of the things I wonder about as we move into this new year, I mean, I've written in my report the variety of people that we were able to draw to our hybrid worship services and our Zoom gatherings were people, some from not in the Fort Collins area, but as far away as Texas and Indiana, as close as Broomfield and Boulder, but people that wouldn't have joined us if we wouldn't have had an online hybrid option. So as we move forward, I just wonder how these on-ramps, as I'm calling them, easy ways to access our community, how people that maybe don't have a faith background or would never darken the doors of a church might see some of these opportunities as a way to build community and connection, and how can we increase those. So I invite you to wonder with me on that, and look forward to hearing any of your ideas that you might have about that. As Charlotte mentioned, and as John will mention coming up, our faith partnership has been strengthened in so many ways this year. It's one of the exciting elements that drew me to St. Paul's is ecumenical relationship, ministry not done in a vacuum, but in community with others. We've had regular monthly clergy gatherings. We've had 2 retreats of our leadership bodies of all 3 congregations. And our co-op, which is made up of lay and clergy representatives that meets monthly, has also had a retreat. And as Charlotte mentioned, this was her idea. We moved our administrative offices from the East Wing of Exile, as she named it, in that monstrosity of a building, to the west side, where many of us have been able to rub shoulders with each other as we warm up food in the microwave and see each other in the hallways. It's really encouraged and fostered our relationships in the faith partnership. for which I'm very grateful. We've gone through a bit of staff change this year, losing two of our beloved staff, Jackie Petrino and Kay Williams, who made decisions because of the pandemic to want to move to be closer to family. And after saying goodbye to them and wishing them well and sending them off with our prayers and gifts, we began to get to work to hire people to continue those ministries, and encouraged our partnerships in those hires, with youth director hiring with St. Luke's Episcopal Church in town, hiring Diane Stapleton, and then we joined together with Trinity Lutheran to hire a joint Sunday school teacher, Jennifer Reeve. And then in Kay's absence, we had interviews with help by choir members to interview for a new choir director, music director, and was able to find Nick Newman, a PhD student at University of Northern Colorado, to lead the choir. In addition, more hires are Bethany Peterson, who replaced our old bookkeeper, Valerie. Bethany has been a treasurer at Christ Church in Castle Rock and still is serving as their bookkeeper. And she joined us at St. Paul's as our new bookkeeper. And then in order to provide hybrid worship, we knew we needed more tech support. So two people came on board, Mike Whitney, many of you know, who is with us today, operating in the tech capacity. We thank you, Mike. And Claire Pickerel, who has joined us as well, who offers sound support when we're meeting together. So all in all, we've had 6 new hires this year to create the team of staff that help do the behind the scenes work at St. Paul's. And then those that you know and love, Lori Goodham, who creates such amazing worship slides and bulletins, and our epistle each week, and helps us communicate what's going on in such loving and spiritual ways. Weltha McGraw, who is in the church office as our parish administrator, who gets checks written and copies bulletins and hands out consecrated elements of bread and wine and nuts and bolts of running a church. We're very thankful for Weltha. And then Mary Schmidt, who is our nursery provider, who many of you don't ever see, but is faithfully providing nursery care for us during our services. I want to thank the staff for amazing work through difficult times. I am honored to be working with such fantastic people. If you get a chance, please say thank you to them for their work. And then the myriad of volunteers who make St. Paul's run, who step up to empty storage units and move furniture to new locations and fold bulletins, and so many volunteer opportunities that are taken up by amazing people in this congregation. I want to thank you for the ways in which you serve this community of faith. And I also want to thank you for making me your rector. A delight of this last year. This is the first time in almost 20 years of ordained ministry that I have been a rector. I've been an associate rector. I've been a vicar of a new congregation, but never a rector. And I couldn't imagine a better congregation to be your rector. So I thank you for that honor. And I invite you to mark your calendars for July 3rd. Our bishop will be joining us on that day, and along with her regular visitation, will be installing me as St. Paul's rector. Hopefully, nothing will interfere with that day. Even if the virus is out of control again, we'll be outside, so we're not going to let that happen. That will be Sunday, January the 3rd. So thank you. Thank you for the honor to serve. And thank you for the ways in which you give and our love. Thanks. Next on our agenda is a report and update from Rhoda Robinson. If our tech folks can spotlight her, she's going to share a little bit about our columbarium.
Thank you, Felicia, and thanks to everybody. I have to add my thank yous because I'm so grateful for the community. Many of you have heard me say before that as a child, the church raised me, and I still feel like that, as you mentioned today, Felicia, we're still growing, still learning, and so I'm still being nurtured. Thank you all. Just to update the columbarium, you said we're done, but we're not quite done. We started last year with the installation of the column of the ashes of some of our beloved who passed away between leaving Elizabeth Street and getting settled at 301 East Stewart Street. And so we had a service. We built the columbaria, installed the niches, and then we had a service in May, which was lovely. And we're able to, as Speedy reminded us so often, bring our people home. And we were able to do that. And so all of our people, beloved ancestors who were interred at Elizabeth Street are now with us in almost all. Well, they're all with us at church. And this year we are installing a memorial board, which just arrived at my house yesterday, that will be placed on the south side of on the west side of the South Columbarium. And on it will be the names of all the people who have been interred in the common crypt, or were interred, as those of you who've been around for a while know, under the trees that were on Elizabeth Street, and also those whose names are known only to God, who were interred in the flower beds there on Elizabeth Street. So this will be a memorial board to remember all those people. Those who are in niches are remembered by faceplates there. Anybody who's not been there, I encourage you to visit the Memorial Garden, the 301 Faith Partners Memorial Garden, which is on the southwest corner of outside, and take a moment to remember all that our ancestors and forebears made possible for us, and that as we move forward with this. What else to say about it? There's not a whole lot. I'm grateful to numerous St. Paulites who worked diligently to make this columbarium move possible. We had a working committee when we installed the large units, involved moving heavy benches. Those things had involved moving bushes. We did a lot of different work to do that. We're kind of anxious to show it off to our bishop when she comes in July. Three of us are, well, Pete Von Driel has been instrumental in all of this and helping, but he's said to me, I'm done for now. And so we need new people to step up. If you're interested in helping, Speedy has taken on the job, Speedy Poplaski has taken on the job of seeing to it that there are flowers always in our memorial garden to honor the people, our ancestors who are there. And Gloria Miles Schoolcraft, some of you know her. I met her for the first time last May when we interred her former husband, Skip Miles, in the columbarium during our service in May. She has become very interested in this and has researched and found an app called Find a Grave. Some of you may be familiar with it. If you're not, you can look it up. In that, there is a memorial page for every person buried who's been identified. And she looked at it and found that all of our interred cremains were listed as Trinity people, and she just couldn't stand that. So she has taken over being in charge of doing a memorial page for us under the heading of St. Paul's Columbarium, and has done a really excellent job in doing research and finding that. And she has asked to be put in our directory. She lives in Wausau, Wisconsin. Talk about distance connections. And she's anybody who has some historical information about any of our ancestors, she'd love to hear from you. And she will be here in May, and we're going to work some more on being sure that we have what information we can gather, because we have some we have some very, very strong relationships and good people to remember, good things to remember. So reach out to Speedy, to Gloria, or to me if you're interested in more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda. Next on the agenda is an update from John Williams on our faith partnership.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Nice to be with you all. And so I'm really wanted to first start by thanking Judy, Alex, and Gordon, who were part of once was a live meetings once a month vision team that turned into meetings multiple times a week for a couple of years during the pandemic, as we worked faithfully through how to be together, what we want to be more together, and putting together the vision, mission, and core values of the faith partnership. I can only speak for myself. I felt the spirit in there with us, moving us. It was powerful. It was difficult, as love can be, as we talked about, as Pastor Felicia talked about earlier today. And so I've in the annual report, we've included the mission, vision, mission, and core values for just maybe an easy reference, so you have it somewhere. But we hope to have this in a lot of places, so that as we live into our core values together, we'll do more and more together. And so doing, we've also formed a signage team to put this into practice. We're working on the sign out front, really making sure that our vision, mission, and core values are at the front of that team, really teaching that team how we as a vision team came together as faith partners. And so we're excited to see what that team completes. And so I just wanted to, if there are any questions concerning our vision, mission, and core values, I'm happy to take those via email or at any time. I think it's actually really important that there's a long presentation that we did for the cooperating committee on what was the journey, which was very interesting. And so, if anybody has any interest, I'd happy to share any of that so that you can see kind of what was our journey, how did we arrive at what we did. And I think one of the questions that often comes up is, why isn't God, Jesus, or Spirit, or in the core values? And one of the reasons is because we didn't want to limit our faith partnership to only Christianity. And so I know that's a common question, so I thought I'd answer it. And we debated it for months and months, and prayed and prayed. And what you see is that we are a faith partnership. You can see the Spirit is in there, but we also didn't want to use words that would keep us from being in partnership with others as this partnership maybe grows in the future. So I know that's a common question, so I thought I'd answer that one right out of the chute. Thanks everybody, and that would and I could also mention we also are working with the cooperating committee with some retreats. Pastor Felicia mentioned those. I've been facilitating those so that they can really come up with a vision and mission for the cooperating committee. What's their purpose? Do they have the right membership? And so this is going to continue our journey of forming this partnership and growing more into our faith together. So thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for your faithful leadership and our faith partnership and the commitment to the hard work of love. Next on our agenda is Jan Jan and Friedland and John Williams presenting our budget in stewardship.
Jan, you're on.
I saw it. Thank you. I'd like to pile on the thanks and praise to everyone in this congregation. I think if you went to Webster's dictionary and looked up steadfast, you would just see a picture of the St. Paul's entire congregation. It's amazing. So I'm going to advance the slide. Maybe.
You just click on the second slide to the left, it'll show that one instead. So should.
We're good. Thank you. Talk about wonderful technical help. John responded to my SOS just with great technical help. Again, deep gratitude for the financial support. The net impact of having 5 fewer pledges, people moving, and adding 2 new pledges, it was a negative $12,000. And the pandemic and many other challenges in life made it difficult for some to continue the pledge. And so 6 pledges were reduced, resulting in another $2,000 reduction. But what is really extraordinary, 31 people in our congregation increased pledges an average of 24%. It's an astounding number to look at your faithfulness and steadfastness, which resulted in our pledges this year actually increased 1.4% at a time when we have heard from the diocese that many, many churches in our diocese are in jeopardy, and yet our pledges increased 1.4% over the last year. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will advance to the next slide and let John present the budget overview.
All right, team. So this is you gotta watch what the comparison is too. So if you look, the change year on year is comparing to actuals in 2021. Okay. So we'll see here in the notes that we're going to talk about comparing, and when we compare, we're comparing actuals to budget. And then we're sometimes mentioning compared to in general, we'll also call out sometimes when we compare budget to budget. Okay. So like in the top line, pledges are up 11.2% compared to last year's actuals, and then 1.4 to last year's pledges. Again, big thank you to everybody. I know it's been a very difficult year, and I'm just really humbled by the sharing of your treasure, and we all appreciate that. Plus all the commitments that we're making to grow spiritually, as well as all the time that people put in. I mean, that's really what makes St. Paul's great. This doesn't include any of the investment income. That often makes it very confusing because we don't really know what we're trying to maximize overall. And then in general, what we've done with the investment income is made up any deficits rather than, put in a whole amount. So, you don't see that in the budget. So just when you're comparing, it's just to be clear. And then at the very bottom, you can see without the investment income, how we would compare budget to budget. I think that's the best comparison, is that very bottom line to show that. Okay. Mission in the ministry is up 1.7%, mostly due to salary increases. We did include in general a cost of living increase of about 3%. And then Christian formation, as we're getting back into in-person, that's our plan. There's a little more expense there as well. Buildings and ground is down. It's almost entirely driven by us dropping our own Comcast service and getting onto Trinity's. That's a nice saving. And another example of working together as faith partners. And we're also down 12.8% due to on administration, mostly because of computer expenses. We're expecting those to go down. Not included in this view is designated giving. This is giving that a lot of us participate in. You're all very generous. Haiti as an example, memorial funds. There was approximately 90K designated given in 2021, of which we only spent 50K. And so there's a lot of outreach that happens within that designated giving that's not included in this budget. This is just our budget without that designated giving. So I don't know if we want to open it to questions. I think it would be good. There's often questions here, and I'll take any questions that you might have.
And I was going to say on stewardship, on the stewardship campaign or on the budget. Any questions?
This is Sarah. I have a question.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Could you speak to the decrease in the non-designated outreach?
Yeah, let me go. I'm going to go pull up the Excel file just so I could talk to it intelligently. The main difference is we've put St. Paul's outreach, which we have a certain amount of money that's designated in there. Last year we did about $8,600, and that comes from when we have has designated the earnings on the investments that we do. We have designated the Vestry, I think it's 10%. And so because we don't know the amount of the investment income, we haven't budgeted that outreach. So I would expect if we continue to perform as normal, Sarah, that would end up being flat overall. We've kept our diocese contribution and front range. I believe they're the same in both cases. Let me just double check that. So it's really that investment income, 10% that we'd like to give to outreach. We don't know the number, so we're leaving it off the budget.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Yeah, no problem.
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's an important ministry, right? So it's a great question.
So John, just for clarity, this is Rhoda.
Yes.
With that decision, so the Vestry decision to spend 10% of the earned income on the investment has stayed the same. And a little reminder of how it's decided how that is spent, please.
If someone from the Vestry could actually speak to that, or Pastor Felicia, I would appreciate that.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Currently, there are requests made to the outreach funding team, which includes Seth Stapleton and Jim Pasula. And so requests are made to them and documentation given. There's actually a form people fill out, and then they vet organizations and then bring them to the Vestry for a final decision. But that's how those outreach dollars, the process for which they're spent.
And if I'm not mistaken, so anyone in the parish, if we know of an outreach that comes up that anyone is invited to make a request through that committee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rhoda, for the question.
So you can see from our investment incomes, they run in the $50,000, 10% is the 4,000 to 5,000. We spent a little more last year. So I think, please get the requests in. We want to be generous. We want to do what's most vital to the community. You are the community and part of our community. So other questions? When we're in person, we usually get 10, 15, so.
John, this is Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah, John, I'd like to just make a comment. Yeah, so in requesting for outreach in this coming year, Seth it's the end of his term on Vestry, so just make those requests to the Vestry. Welfa has the forms, and you can go ahead and do it that way. And also, let me just point out, because John and Jan and Felicia and I were on the budget committee together, and Vestry this past year spent some time deliberating how to show our investment income in the budget. And we decided that we would take it out of the income line in the top, because it was an estimate of how much interest income we may need to, quote, balance the budget. So you will see, what is it, $49,000 deficit this coming year.
Can you share the screen again?
Yeah, maybe the screen is too small for nobody to notice that, because that looks startling. So I just wanted to explain that what that is actually, that will come from our investment income. We don't have to worry that we're going to borrow $50,000 from someone. It will come from investment income, and it will be an amount needed to balance the budget. Secondly, that money is approximately, almost all of it is our 10% pledge to the diocese and to the region. So just to give it a kind of an equivalent amount of what most of that goes to, we would be self-sustaining without that contribution, almost self-sustaining or within budget estimating error. But St. Paul's has always felt very strongly about making our appropriate contribution to the diocese. So I don't know if that confused things or clarified some things, but I just wanted to explain the $50,000 deficit. It's not a problem.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Well, can I also, we do still have an investment committee operating, another set of volunteers within the church who are watching that investment as the stock market flows and does its thing. Am I correct?
Well, Rhoda, actually, that's a very important point. The investment committee is Mike Werner's head of it, and Genevieve and Jim Pasula are on it. In the middle of this past year, we moved it out of conservative investments in bonds and put it with the Episcopal Church Foundation. And since that time, these are sustainable investments, and we've got a short and a long-term fund. We are making an amazing amount of interest and increase in market value, except when the market's down and then it comes back up. So the investment committee really led the Vestry into making a very sound choice, and our money from the old St. Paul's is really doing very well, folks.
Yep.
And we should thank those three people for all the research they had to do to lead us to a proper place to put the money.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
I just had a funny to share. This is Sarah. I'm just realizing, being a numbers person, my eye immediately went to the 2,900% for hospitality, which just tickled me. But then it made me think about the mustard seed and how God's gifts to us are often on that order. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah.
If there are no more questions or comments on the budget, I want to thank John and Jan and Charlotte for being on the budget committee and helping us come up with this budget, for the Vestry for passing it. And thank you for your attentiveness to this portion of our meeting today. Next on the agenda is Becky Scheller with Vestry elections.
Good morning, everybody. First, I want to highlight Article 5, Section 4 of the bylaws, that every communicant in good standing listed in the parish directory, 16 years of age or older, is an elector and qualified to vote. Proxy and absentee voting is not allowed. So please turn on your video feed so we can see when you are voting. And we'll elect a senior warden, a junior warden. There are 2 vacancies on the vestry. We will fill those, but I will also call for nominations from the floor or from the screen for vestry. So to begin with, oh, I should also say, I'm going to take nominations, but we have designated people available to do the nominations. So I'm going to start with Pastor Felicia. Do you have a nomination for senior warden?
Yes, I do. I'd like to nominate Jan Friedland to serve a 1-year term as senior warden.
And Jan, do you accept this nomination?
Yes, thank you.
All in favor of electing Jan Friedland to a 1-year term as senior warden, please raise your hands and keep them raised while we count or look at the vote. Thank you. Okay, you may lower your hands. All opposed to electing Jan Friedland for a term as senior warden, please raise your hands.
Becky, I'm not seeing any.
Thanks, Sue. I didn't either. So Jan has been elected as senior warden to serve a 1-year term. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I am honored by your confidence.
And good luck.
I just want to jump in. We got some people raising virtual hands too, so you might want to watch the participants list to see
Okay.
in case some people can't get their cameras on.
Okay, thanks for the reminder, Mike. And Sue is helping me scan the screens, the voting here. Hey, Felicia, do you have a nomination for junior warden?
I do. I would like to nominate John Williams to serve a 1-year term as junior warden.
And John, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, with God and Tracy Williams' help.
All those in favor of electing John Williams to serve as junior warden, please raise your hand. Hands.
Tracy.
Okay. I've got myself stuck in something I can't get out of here. Let's see. Okay. You can lower your hands. Now, everyone opposed to electing John as our junior warden, please raise your hands.
Becky, I'm not seeing any either on the list of participants or on the screen.
Okay, thanks, Sue. I agree. So John Williams is our new junior warden.
Thank you.
Now, there are 2 openings on the vestry and 2 people who are willing to serve. Each term is for 3 years, and we will nominate 2 parishioners and then call for nominations from the floor and then hold elections. Chris Schrader, do you have a nomination for the first 3-year term on the vestry?
Yes, I do, Becky. I would like to nominate Jim Steinborn.
And Jim, are you willing to serve?
I am.
Thank you. And Chris, do you have another nomination for the open seat on the vestry?
I do. I would like to nominate Tim Johnson.
And Tim, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm going to call for nominations from the floor. If you're doing a nomination, please identify yourself and the person you're nominating. So nominations are open. Sue, do you see anything in the chat?
I'm not seeing anything on the participants list. I'm not seeing anything. Hang on just a second. Let me double check the chat. No, I am not.
Okay.
This is Sarah. I move to close nominations.
Thank you, Sarah. And a second,
I second that.
and that's
This
Tracy
is
Williams.
Tracy Williams, yes.
Thank you. Okay, we will begin voting first for Jim Steinborn. Please keep your screens on and raise your hands. All in favor of electing Jim to a 3-year term on the vestry? Okay. I see one text coming in. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You can put your hands down. And anyone opposed to electing Jim to a 3-year term, please raise your hand.
Okay, I'm not seeing any on the screen. I'm not seeing any in the chat. And I'm
Okay.
not seeing any on the participants list.
Okay, I believe that means Jim has been elected to a 3-year term on the vestry.
Hey, Jim.
Okay. And now the second nominee is Tim Johnson. All in favor of electing Tim to a 3-year term on the vestry, please raise your hands. Chat.
Chat, we've got 2 yes votes.
Okay, you may lower your hands. Thank you. Now, anyone opposed to Tim serving on the vestry, please raise your hands.
I'm not seeing any hands. Well, except for
Once-
Susie's, but she hasn't put it down for a while, so I'm guessing that's not a,
Okay,
yeah.
that's
I
an
think we're good.
attention span thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we've elected Tim Johnson to serve on the vestry. Thank you all
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky, so much for running our elections today and for Sue Eisenhower and your help with our elections. We
You are welcome.
appreciate your service. And for those of you willing to serve a term on the vestry, I give you deep, deep thanks. And that's what I'm going to do now is give my gratitude and thanksgiving for those who have served in ministry over this past year and who have now stepped down from particular ministries. Not only has Becky served as our election master, she has been an acolyte master for St. Paul's for many years, and she has stepped down from that ministry this year, and I want to thank her for the many ways that she has groomed young people and old alike in serving at the altar. Becky, we give you thanks for your service.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And then also for Pony Davis, who served 1 year longer than she would have liked as St. Paul's treasurer. We give you thanks, Pony, for your willingness to serve in this role, an important role in the life of the church, and for the gifts that you gave to that particular ministry. Thank you, Pony. And now to outgoing Vestry members, it has been an honor to serve with you. I thank you for the unique gifts that each of you has brought. Thank you, Charlotte Layton, for serving as a senior warden at St. Paul's, for the many ideas and creativity that you offered the role and the partnership in leading at St. Paul's. It has been a joy and an honor to work with you. And Chris Schrader as junior warden has served, gosh, has it been 3 years, Chris? I moved into the junior.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I thank you, Chris, for your many years of service in creating matrix to make decisions on moving, to helping us be very discerning, especially when it came to the pandemic. Chris, I thank you for your service amongst us.
It's been an honor.
And now to two rotating off of the vestry, Demetrius Godnitz and Seth Stapleton. I give you thanks for the ways that you have creatively led in our midst. Your prayers and your presence have given me pause and great thanks as I've thought of all of the things that you've offered. Thank you for your willingness to serve in the councils of the church, and we will miss you. And I somehow failed to mention when I was thanking staff, our longest serving staff member, which is Monty Hogan as our organist, who's been on for almost 27 years, I think. Somehow I skipped right over it, and I don't know how. I apologize. So I want to honor and thank Monty Hogan for the many years he's provided for us the beauty of music, organ, and piano playing. Thank you, Monty.
Thank you. Yeah, I started in 1993.
Wow. Many years of faithful service. Well, I believe that concludes our 2002 annual meeting of St. Paul's. And I want to thank you all for staying and taking part in the councils of the church. I wish you well this day. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful Sunday and week.
Bye-bye.